Like everyone, it's been a lot of years in between being here and seeing you guys, so it's great to be back. That work? Okay. So I'm going to give you just a real rough overview, including the big themes from the 2021-22 season, and then I'll also give you some additional industry perspective. SIA has been doing research for a lot longer than I've been at SIA, but we really focused in on honing in the research to be more relevant and looking for new insights to share with our members. So some of our big ticket research items are consumer insights, insights into diversity in snow sports, wholesale sales and orders, which really is a B2B piece, and then participation. And we do a lot of custom research as well for our members. And then we also have consumer panels, consumer anticipation, snow sports retail consumer behavior, retail direct to consumer for snow sports, which is a new piece for us and the industry. And certainly that's a hot ticket item, but it's something that is right in front of us and we need to address squarely. Holiday purchase, snow sports used marketplace, snow sports consumer rental and services, and then snow sports technology and participation, along with diversity. So the research department has really expanded and grown into all these different areas, and we are trying to address as much of the data that the consumers that we're going to be collecting data here this weekend and our members are asking for. So again, like I said, we're going to be covering some key themes here. SIA is part of a PAC, and so the Physical Activity Council is who we partner with to gather this data. They are focused on USA sports and the physical activity, and there's 18,000 members, and we're just a partner in this group, along with USA Football, National Golf Federation, Tennis Federation, OIA, Outdoor Industry, People for Bikes, and a number of others. So just to get into it here, just to cover what a participant means. Participant is someone who participates at least once in any given snow sport. We're going to talk about Nordic, we're going to talk about fat bike, we're going to talk about running and uphill, and a few others. So this group that we're polling is nationwide. It's not segmented into one area. So we get a real nice broad look at participation. No shock to this group here, but participants are still well educated and are still coming with higher incomes. And we're looking to see that adjust and change as more people were getting outside during the pandemic, and hopefully they're going to stay going outside and exercising. We are seeing that inactive group declining. I'll get to that in a minute, but really the struggle that we have as an industry is how do you make this sport more affordable? I use the analogy all the time. You don't go to Pebble Beach for your first round of golf. I go to Morrisville Country Club, which is $18 a round. Anyway, and you can have just as much fun and a good time. There's plenty of alternatives. Being a Vermonter, you can go to Smugs, you can go to Cochran's, you can go to Jay Peak. There's a few other places you can go as well around the country that are affordable and easy. You don't have to go into Gorsuch to buy your new setup. You can go into Play It Again just as well as the next guy. So, specific to this region here, talking about participants by region, there's 1.6 million winter sport participants in New England, and that number kind of grows when you go into the Mid-Atlantic, into Eastern and Northern Central, into the West and North Central, and then obviously into the mountains in the Pacific area. Just to give you some perspective, the Pacific area has 4.4 million. The mountain region has 2.3 million as well. So anyway, one of the larger conversations that people are just talking about is the health of the sport and the health of the participants. The number of unique participants is flat, and the number is slowly moving in this downward trend. When I mean downward, we're talking less than 1,000 people per region, but it is a sign that we are starting to see some wear and tear on our participants that we've depended so much on over the course of our time in this sport. Again, it's less than 1,000 people per region, so it's a nominal number. We are not seeing any growth in snow sport participant gender. It's still very much 60-40 male, and the household income of each participant is well over 100,000. So again, speaking back to the high net earners and household incomes, this sport still is trending in that space. We are seeing some pickup in the 25,000 to 50,000 range, which is indicative of younger participants coming into the sport and starting to pave their way. And certainly, there's a lot of competition for those younger consumers and participants as they are maybe paying off a student loan, maybe they're starting a family, buying a house, getting a new job. But if you have children, it's our duty to make sure they keep skiing and keep the health of the sport vibrant. I have 3 kids, and they're maybe skiing too much to a fault, but nevertheless, I'm doing my part. So when it goes down to going back to the household income, certainly here in New England, the average household income and including assets is over 1.5 million that participate. That grows much higher as you go to the west, greater than 4.5 million in the Pacific area. So you can, again, the numbers frequently speak and consistently speak to high income earners. One area that we are constantly looking at is just this, what we call a flat participant, and that's largely driven by the decrease in skiing. We're seeing increases in other sports, snow sports. Snowboarding had a small increase. Cross country had a significant increase. Snowshoeing, AT, snowboard touring, sledding, and fat biking had the largest increase, just behind AT skiing. Those increases are nominal compared to where alpine skiing and snowboarding are, but it's still great to see the growth in other sports. And again, that's indicative of the interest of getting outside during COVID. Everyone was trying new sports, getting into other ways to stay healthy, socially distant. And as the ski areas were shut down for that brief period, there was a lot of renewed interest in these sports, specifically cross country, AT, and sledding. I also wanted to make note of just that comment alone. Alpine skiing, those people who participated are also participating in other winter sports as well. And so we're seeing a lot of cross-pollination, specifically in snowshoes, specifically in cross-country, AT and fat bike. And then sledding continues to grow as well. Easy way to get involved into winter sport. And the same can be said around cross-country skiing as well. Those who cross-country ski are also participating in these sports. I can speak for myself. I skied the other day in Park City on Saturday, and the Nordic track just opened, and I went fat tire biking on Sunday. So I'm enjoying being on the outside, and I can only speak for observationally what I see in Park City. More and more people are participating in these sports, which is great for all of us. It's great for the retailer, and but we are seeing some new trends of people moving into traditional winter alpine communities and not participating in the key activities like skiing and snowboarding. And they're there for the other 3 seasons, but they are participating in these other areas. As I mentioned, touring in particular saw massive growth, and 96.3% growth. Snowboard touring saw 50.7% growth. Those are the largest growth spots for any individual winter sport, and it's exciting to see that, and it's really nice to see people getting outside away from the resort and getting into the backcountry. That being said, that is also riddled with problems when it comes to snow safety, having the right gear, having the right group to participate with, and like everything, just being safe and knowing where you're going. Certainly, if you've been to a resort lately, maybe in the morning or in the late afternoon, you're seeing a lot of uphill traffic. The resorts have adopted that and are very much driving that, and we're seeing good growth in uphill at resort as well, as an easy way to get into uphill, as a great way to get exercise, and for those who may not be getting into skiing, or maybe moving away from skiing and snowboarding, a way to get exercise and then take the lift down. And so we're seeing some good, healthy growth there. We're also seeing a lot of growth in avalanche gear, beacons, probes, shovels, backpacks, all the appropriate areas that you would imagine, over 70% growth. I just started skiing with my beacon inbound. It's a tool that I use every day, and it's just a safe way to go. And there's as many accidents inbound as there are out of bounds, so you're never 100% safe. And if you're going to get adventurous and go off piste, older participants as a whole are declining. We've been talking about this. Baby boomers are moving away from the sport and moving into other areas, and that is contributing to this decline. And then we're also seeing a real slow uptick in diversification. We are seeing more people of color coming into the sport, but not at a rate that is going to counter those that are leaving the sport in that older age bracket. Right now, we've got a pretty healthy group of participants over the age of 45, and that group, as I just mentioned, is declining. The good news is we have a large group of participants under the age of 45 that are coming back into the sport and are continuing to stick with it. But again, as I mentioned, along with diversification, it's not enough to continue to fill that funnel. So everything is going a little bit backwards. As I mentioned, diversification is certainly a buzz topic, and something that we're following very, very, very quickly, and adapting all of our data to that. We're seeing more pickup by Hispanics, and that is followed by African Americans. But these numbers are very small compared to where the Caucasians are, and so we need to start focusing on bringing in more diversification if we want to grow the participant pool. So again, I mentioned some activities by trends, and certainly this is on the heels of COVID, as I've mentioned a few times. Fitness sports are the largest. Outdoor sports are right behind there, and then individual sports, and I'll get into those here in a second. But team sports are slowly driving more pickup. I know more and more of my friends or kids are going to stick and ball sports rather than snow sliding sports. But the largest increase in all sports is pickleball. And you've probably seen that phenomenon, and that is continuing to grow and take the world by storm. And that's followed by skateboarding. And so we've got a 39% increase in pickleball compared to 32% in skateboarding. So if your kids are out skateboarding, or maybe you're picking it up at a later age, congratulations. And tennis is following that at 27%. So the racquetball sports are driving most of the activity, followed by camping, golfing, hiking, surfing, trail running, yoga, basketball, and bicycling. And bicycling, probably the big note there everyone has noticed, is gravel bikes is driving that participation. So when we start thinking about the sports that are decreasing, no shock if you're following Peloton, stationary bikes had a 40% decrease. Cross training had a decreased cardio kickboxing, boot camp style training, stair climbing, etc. All of you CrossFitters out there have probably seen less participants in your home gym. So those participants that are earning 25,000 or less are 3 times likely to be inactive. So we talked about that inactive participant. Those earning more than 100,000 are certainly driving the active list. And again, as we're competing for time and dollars, we need to continue to push these younger participants in the sports to be more inclusive, but also look for ways that they can get in a very affordable range. That being said, those participants under 25,000 are also those that are under the age of 45. So we can see a correlation there, and that is a focus that we are looking at. And then obviously, the income disparity is a huge initiative for us as well to track and follow and really understand what that trending is looking like and how that compares to other sports, as I mentioned, pickleball being the big growth sport, but getting back to snow sports, how that compares to snowboarding, cross country, sledding, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the big news is that participation is relatively flat. The industry is healthy coming out of COVID. If you've picked up the paper, you'll see all the economic issues that we're facing: potential recession, inflation, supply chain, all the big key topics that we're hearing and reading about. So it'll be a different story a year from now, and it'll be interesting to compare how we came from COVID, sans COVID, back into what we're calling this normal space, and how these modern challenges are affecting our business. But so far, retail is performing well. It's great to see some cold weather here in New England. I know it was hot here the last few weeks. I was in Stoke a few weeks ago. It was 75 or something. Park City has been very cold. The West has been cold. The West has been snowy. That's great, but we need the entire country to perform to keep these numbers moving in the direction that we like to see them, and keep our retailers and manufacturers happy with the performance of the sale of gear. It's a lot of information. I'm happy to email this to you, and you can share this with your members. You can also go to snowsports.org, and in the member portal, we have all of our data and research there, and you can peruse through that and pick and choose what is important to you. Any questions?
I'm interested in the point you were making on the older skier participation dropping.
Yep.
At what point does that decline begin? What defines it?
Well, I mean, it's really it's a user group. It's baby boomers, and that group of participants has driven this industry for the last 40 years, and those participants are aging out or choosing a less impact sport.
Are you seeing that decline starting, say, at age 50 and now?
Well, I mean, it's that question is a great one, because those that are getting into their 50s and have a family are now, maybe have kids in college, maybe have kids buying their first house, and so they're shifting resources to pay for college or a home, and so that person maybe is making a choice to take a couple years off,
at the
or
same point, chances are the income is increasing.
that would you would think that, right? So getting through that, that's right. So getting through that growth phase, where you are going to see more dollars to your bottom line, as you mentioned, is getting people back into the sport. But what we're seeing are people are taking breaks, and there's a lot of talk about multi-mountain passes and how that might be contributing to this, the traffic, so on and so forth. The numbers don't prove that, and certainly the traffic doesn't prove that. There are more people that are in the sport that are going more frequently, and but certainly these life choices are starting to affect the numbers. But when you get into that 60, 65-year age bracket, that's when you're starting to see those decreases slide, and certainly 70 they're moving in a very aggressive downward trend.
You mentioned sledding as an activity. Does that include tubing, like lift service?
That is not lift service tubing, just on your own power. We don't measure lift service tubing. NSAA does that with their participation report. Ours is just, what are you doing in your backyard? What are you doing on your school hill? More traditional sledding. Certainly tubing is a growth area, and you're seeing more tubing hills at resort. It's a great money driver. It's a great, après activity. And it's a great activity for those that don't participate in winter sports that want to enjoy a mountain community.
Question to what Phil brought up. Are we seeing a decrease in the average age of participants because of the age out? And it seemed like we were hearing that younger cohorts were not participating as much, but it sounds like maybe they are starting to now because of COVID.
Yeah.
But of course now we might be going into a recession, so obviously for people that have
Yes.
income, that's going to be harder perhaps for some sports to get people to participate.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and that point, due to COVID, seeing these younger age groups participating more and going frequently. It's really going to be fascinating to see where we go this winter and how those numbers go up or down, depending on what your family situation is. And but there is and we've seen good growth in that under 45 age group, and that really is focusing in that like 23 to 27 year old space, and then under 6. So families are bringing kids out more frequently.
Yeah, that's really important. I know NSA has statistics.
Yeah.
Kids that start. The younger you start, obviously, the more that you're going to participate.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And so, speaking for myself, but also how it aligns with these numbers, getting out, and whether you're sledding or snowshoeing or Nordic skiing as an entry point to the sport with your kids, as opposed to going to resort. And certainly with the traffic being what it is at resort, going on your home bike path or your golf course or your driveway, that's where it starts. And then, slowly progressing back to resort. Yeah, go ahead.
Generally, when I ask a question like this, I like to look at a 5-year window. We only have a 3-year window here. Would you say that the advent of IndyPass has contributed to making the cost of generally skiing travel come down a little bit? And if so, could you quantify in a percentage about how much you think a value is contributing?
IndyPass is a great alternative to, say, an Epic or an Icon. The price point is there. The same can be said with Mountain Collective as well. And for those looking for alternatives, from a percentage standpoint, I couldn't give you an accurate percentage on that. Vail's very protective of their numbers. You can read it on the street, but it's certainly Epic is driving most of this. But when you get into that affordable space and you start thinking about where Indy fits in the makeup, certainly it's providing a huge alternative. But from a percentage perspective, I couldn't give you an accurate number. That's something that maybe we can look at in the future for sure. But go ahead.
It's very interesting to hear that you see an increase in cross-country skiing.
Mm-hmm.
In the late 70s, there were 880,000 pairs of skis sold in the United States. How many pairs were done this year? What was the participation?
Well, let me tell you, I got it right here. Reese probably knows that number.
What, 4.9 million skiers?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see, I can find it here. Give me 1 second. Four, 4.851, 4.9. So yeah, skier visits, yeah. And but the number of Nordic skis, the Nordic category has grown 800% during COVID. Now we're starting to see a slide. And you know, number of units sold, I can get back to you on that one. We do have that stat. I don't have it on me, but maybe Reese has that one too. Yeah, yeah. You know, the growth was, you know, tremendous. I mean, it was one of those things. You know, this is a once in a lifetime. You're going to see that kind of growth in Nordic, and then certainly Nordic was crippled with a lot of issues, Fisher factory burning down, and a few other significant issues as well. But you know, largely there are enough manufacturers that are doing OEM product, and that, you know, you can move that business around to uh, to continue to drive that. But yeah, I mean, Nordic is really proving to be, you know, a nice growth area for winter sport. It's
Is Nordic also a 60-40 split between women and men?
I don't have that stat here because I just have the Alpine one, but it's very similar, as is snowboarding, and that's pretty much the standard split. Yeah,
So within the industry, you're seeing it's like a 60-40
yeah.
split between, okay.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, that number, you know, you see a 58, you know, 42, but it just hovers right at 60-40, and we've really had a hard time bucking those numbers. And certainly when I worked at Burton Snowboards, we worked very hard to try to change that, to no avail. And then certainly in the different ski companies I worked for, same thing. But that's just the way that number looks. You had a question.
Another look on the older day. Is there any quantification of the grandparent effect?
There's no data that reflects to a grandparent, but just to an age bracket. So, yeah, but
The idea of the family idea is
yeah,
a way of.
I mean,
grandchildren.
it is, you know, and I think, you know, history will tell you that if you are an active participant, you raise your children that way, you're going to raise your grandchildren that way. And certainly, you know, talking about those household incomes, you know, you see a lot of income sliding into those younger ages as well, trying to help your kids. And, you know, and again, it's a lifestyle and it's healthy. And, you know, people's primary homes are in mountain communities. And so they're going to participate in any one of these sports.
But in spite of that, you're still seeing that decline.
The funnel is just getting more and more shallow. And you know, unfortunately, the baby boomers were such a force of nature here. It's just really hard to match that. In the back there, you had a question.
With the aging out of the older skiers, one of the main concerns that they have is safety. Have you been dealing with how to deal with the other skiers and providing a safer?
We don't track that. NSAA does that. Kelly Pollock. You know, they say safety is a huge initiative, for the resorts. And certainly, you know, I've seen, you know, I was skiing in Stowe last Christmas. You know, I couldn't believe the number of people that were on those trails, as well as skiing at Deer Valley and Park City, and which is equally the same. You know, you're skiing around people, as opposed to skiing the trail, which is a new phenomenon as well. Maybe not so much for Park City, but for Deer Valley. And but you know, again, with these multi-mountain passes and more people coming back more frequently, it's just creating, you know, more demand on the trails, on the snow, on the lifts, and it's really hard to keep a nice surface, but it's also really hard to stay safe as you're skiing around people.
Do you see ski areas starting to limit skier visits? Like I see in New Hampshire.
There are resorts that are capping out. Certainly, I can't say for the Vail or the Icon resorts. I haven't seen that. I do know, you know, there's a 25,000 person, you know, limit at some of these resorts, but whether or not they're hitting that, I couldn't tell you. Molly may have a.
They definitely are.
Mhm,
We've got a few resorts, Mount River and NASJA,
mhm.
that are capping the number, and you need to or you are,
Pre
yeah,
pre-book.
yeah,
Yeah.
pre-book. And the
Mhm,
Vail resorts, I
mhm.
believe, are,
They're just.
well, I think they are limiting,
Mhm.
and they're not
Yeah.
guaranteeing, day
Yeah.
tickets. So they're
Day
not
tickets. Yeah.
guaranteeing that, they're saying you should
Right.
pre-buy
Right.
if you want to be.
But if you have an Epic Pass,
Yeah,
you know,
if you have a
you're,
pass,
you know, you're good to go. So it's a little bit of a, you know,
walk up to the
yeah.
window, you maybe
Powder Mountain has a 5,000 person limit. Yeah, which is great. Yeah.
I just think that that's gonna be a phenomenon we're gonna have to deal with. Maybe New Hampshire has
Mhm.
just introduced a limit number of people hiking off of that, any one day.
Yeah. But when it comes to skiing, you know, I looked at Christian for a Pacific group over here, you know, it's still a race to sell tickets and passes to get people on the hill. But there is a curve where you're going to,
Implemented ticket caps
you
at
did.
several of our Disney and Atlantic resorts. And, you know, and we do sell out tickets on weekends, most Saturdays.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've noticed is that the ski areas, this is talking about the older skiers
Mhm.
too, that they're upping the age to get the discounted for being older. I mean, for a while there, I was always behind when they kept upping it. You
Now
know,
you're bucking the trend.
I would think that if more older skiers might ski, I mean, they might only ski a morning,
Mhm.
and we ski about, but
Mhm.
if they would have certain days where, 60 and over gets a discount or something like that, because I noticed, they're upping it to 70
Yep.
to get a discount, and it used to be a lot lower than that.
Right.
I mean, for a while there, people were getting fitter. I do know a lot of downhill skiers are switching over to cross country, but, there are the grandparents who still want to go ski with their grandkids, but when they,
Yeah.
they can't keep up with them now.
Go ahead.
Are there any, talking about the younger end of the spectrum, my daughter just graduated from college,
Mhm.
she's in the middle of texting me that she can't afford ski, I mean, she wants me to pay for ski passes, but. Like, are there
I
any
think there's
stats,
a,
they're now reinstating your parents' insurance until you're 26, are there stats on resorts that are offering discounted passes for kids in their 20s who are trying to get?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, I bought my daughter's, she's 20, 21, you know, a pass, and I couldn't believe the number of options that both Icon and Epic had, and of course those are the two she wanted, but you know, I think there's a lot of affordable options there. You know, if you're thinking you're going to ski every day, and then you can buy the most expensive one. You know, if you're willing to, you know, maybe ski less each week, I couldn't believe the number of options. I mean, it's a plethora of options. Yeah.
Resort to
Hmm.
resort, and also these multi-resort passes. So I
Hmm.
was wondering if there's anybody, if you guys have conglomerated any stats on the number.
No, not on those. I mean, again, you know, those numbers are held pretty tightly. Yeah. Any other questions? Good luck with that pass. Thank you.
Before you go, can you just say briefly what the relationship is between SIA and Snowbound?
Snowbound? Sure.
Yeah, how that all
Yeah.
came about.
Yeah. So SIA bought BWE from Bernie, probably the luckiest man around.
Yeah.
And the timing of that acquisition, uh, you know, who would have thought we closed on that deal January 29, 2020. And we were out of business, you know, 6 weeks later. But I mentioned last night, but nevertheless, I saw a competitive event coming to Boston, and it was called the Snow Show, I believe. And it was 2 weeks before the Snowbound event that we had planned here. And so I called the owner of the show, and Mike Seaman, who's here as well. And we connected, and we decided that it would be best to partner on a winter sport event as opposed to compete with each other. And through that discussion, I ended up selling Snowbound to Mike, but we retain a revenue share on the back end of that. And so we're very much integrated into Snowbound, one for our members, one for second for the data, and then third, you know, we want to keep the legacy here in Boston, what Bernie started 40 plus years ago, and And honestly, I've been very vocal about this over the years. We need to be closer to our consumer. You can buy, anything you want on over the internet, your house, your car, the largest purchase of your life. And still today, the manufacturer is very hesitant to connect directly to a consumer, and in effort to protect the wholesale channel. But that ship is sailing. There's always a place and a need for the wholesale retail channel. But this introduction to the consumer is more important now than it's ever been. And the data that we're collecting and the data points that we're building around that consumer interaction are going to be more important as these years go on. And so, last comment. We also acquired the Denver show. We killed that show. The ROI wasn't there, and the value really was diminishing. So we're looking at other markets to grow the Snowbound platform. So in the coming years, based on the success of this show here, we'll see some other growth areas. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I was posting this. I have a group of 8,500 women who ski. I told them the numbers about 60-40, they're appalled.
Yeah.
But
Well, get out there. Yeah.
We try. I mean,
Yeah.
we really try.
No, you guys do a great job.
One of the questions was, they're so interested to hear that, the sport is shrinking, not growing, because it feels, I mean, in their words, it feels so packed on the mountains. So the explanation is there's more skiers are skiing more, the skiers that are out there are skiing more days.
That's correct. Yeah. And so NSAA publishes a great report, Kottke report, and it shows the third largest skier visit in history. Well, their history is 40 years of tracking skier visits. It was the number 59 million or something, and that was up from a couple percentage points from the year prior. But the reality is it's the same user coming back more frequent. Where we're really struggling is getting new participants into the sport, and those numbers are really flat and are almost embarrassing to share. And and that's where we're really seeing this area to grow, just not moving. And
in real time, so I'm sharing
Yeah.
what you're talking.
Yeah.
So somebody said $200, I'd rather buy a sweater, than get a lift pass for the day.
I would expect that.
She's not hardcore.
Yeah.
A given.
I had one of those ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sweater, and then they're saying the affordability issue.
I mean, that's that. You talk to anyone, that's all they want to talk about is the affordability. And but it's a choice. Everyone makes choices. And
Sweater, go ski.
yeah, maybe you already have 10. But that's your choice.
All right. Well, thank you
We're good.
again.
Okay.
for
Thank you.
joining us.
Appreciate it.